Hi everybody, JJ here with ASUS. Have you been thinking about building your first gaming PC, but you've been a bit confused when it comes to all the different types of components that are out there, wondering about compatibility, whether it's all going to work and whether you're going to have a stable and reliable system? Well, don't worry about it. Regardless of whether you're accounting for the CPU, the graphics cards, how many watts that you're going to have in terms of the power supply, how much memory, the storage device, the cooling considerations, we've gone ahead and actually defined all the different components you're going to need at 3 different price points so that you're going to have a great, reliable, and fully compatible experience when you go about building your first gaming PC with ASUS. So let's go ahead and jump into the 3 different builds that we've got for you while I go ahead and give you some insights into different components that you have within each one of these builds. Make sure to go ahead and check out the corresponding link in the description below to make sure that you get up-to-date pricing in relation to the actual different components that we have selected. So first up, let's talk about the CPU. We're going to be utilizing AMD's latest 3rd generation Ryzen series processor, specifically the Ryzen 3600. Very similar to the 2600 that we selected in our entry-level build, it's a 6-core 12-thread series processor that also supports overclocking. This is going to be a great CPU choice as it's going to offer us very good performance in pretty much all types of usage scenarios. Again, whether it's general productivity, gaming, or even streaming. And the fact that we have overclocking margin built into it allows us to go ahead and even get a little bit more performance. And one of the really cool things, especially with an ASUS series motherboard, is that there's a lot of different ways that you can extend the performance of this part, whether it's utilizing technologies like our ASUS APE, which is on our B550 series of motherboards, per-core CCX, which is a specialized way of overclocking a little bit more intelligently the cores on a Ryzen series processor, or just traditional manual overclocking. All these options and more are available in the ASUS UEFI, or what some people call the BIOS. So next, let's talk about the motherboard. We've gone ahead and selected our entry gaming series motherboard from the latest AMD B550 series chipset. This is a fantastic board. The TUF Gaming B550M Plus Wi-Fi really has just about every key specification you could ask for in a nice gaming rig. You're going to have, of course, the latest generation of connectivity with USB 3.1 and USB 3.2 connections, including Type A and Type C. You're going to have the latest generation of Wi-Fi 6 built on board along with Bluetooth 5.0. Wi-Fi 6 is absolutely fantastic if you're looking for ultra high speed and low latency Wi-Fi connectivity. And just like our B450 TUF Gaming motherboard, this one also features the TUF Gaming LAN design. So not only for the wired, but also for the wireless connection, you have our TurboLAN software that allows you to go ahead and easily prioritize your games so that regardless of what else you might be running on your system, you can make sure your games are getting the most prioritization and the best network experience. In terms of audio, you also see an upgrade where you've got the TUF Gaming isolated audio design. Now, the really cool thing about this is it ultimately just helps provide clearer and better audio experience in music, movies, and games. This board also features our AI noise canceling technology, which can really help to improve the dialogue and the clarity when you're gaming online, or just using any type of actually chat feature or functionality in any type of application. The great thing is it works with both analog and digital microphones. In addition to AI noise canceling, you're also going to have an upgrade in terms of the LAN from 1 gigabit to 2.5 gigabits. You're going to have full support for PCI Express Gen 4 M.2 based SSDs, and you're also going to see some nice upgrades in terms of RGB connectivity with 3 headers that are going to be built onto this motherboard. Now let's talk about the RAM or the memory for this system. Here we've gone ahead and upgraded the memory, and we've selected, again, 16 gigabytes because it's a great foundation in terms of offering us more than enough memory for general productivity, multitasking, running tons of tabs in our browser, switching back and forth between applications and games, and definitely having more than enough games to comfortably run good performance even in AAA based titles. We have gone ahead and gone with a little bit faster memory speed with DDR4 3600. Well, a little bit more expensive than 3000 or 3200 megahertz, you get a little bit of a performance bump. And also because we're utilizing a B550 motherboard and specifically a Ryzen 3000 series processor, which features a better memory controller that can support faster speeds, we can feel comfortable and confident in this memory being able to run on this motherboard. And we also have a great option on our B550 motherboards called DOCP that allow you to easily enable this speed right out of the box. And we've also gone ahead and upgraded this to RGB memory. So not only do you get RGB lighting on the motherboard, but you're going to get some RGB flare on the memory. Now let's talk about storage. Here we've gone ahead and selected an SSD because we want to be able to have a very fast and responsive system when it comes to not only booting into Windows, installing games and applications and updates, but overall just having a snappy and responsive Windows environment. We also went with a 512 gigabyte drive so that we can make sure that we have more than enough room for Windows and all the corresponding applications, personal files, and of course all the games that we want to install. It being a PCI Express NVMe based drive is also going to help to ensure that performance that we were talking about earlier, and it being an M.2 based SSD means that it can be easily installed with no cables. Now next up, let's go ahead and talk about the graphics card. Here we've gone ahead and selected the GeForce GTX 1660 Super, and specifically the TUF Gaming version. This is going to be a cool and quiet graphics card thanks to a direct contact copper heat pipe, which is going to pull away the heat from the GPU and dissipate it into a good size heatsink assembly, and has 2 fans which help to keep the overall card cool and quiet. With a good temperature performance, you're going to be able to go ahead and overclock the card a little bit more, but keep in mind that the one that we've gone ahead and selected already does feature a little bit of a factory overclock, and it's going to provide very good performance. You can easily go ahead and customize things like the fan speeds and clock speeds through the GPU Tweak utility, and when it comes to the overall long-term reliability of the card, this card definitely is going to see some improvements compared to a traditional base card. One, it's produced utilizing our Auto Extreme technology, which means that we use robotic production precision analysis to be able to construct and confirm the card. This ultimately provides a more reliable graphics card in the long run. It uses a specialized fan design which features high quality aerospace grade lubricant along with specialized sealed hub assembly, which just ultimately means that dust, debris, and dander can't readily get into the fan hub assembly to affect its long-term reliability. And I also love the fact that it looks cooler than a traditional graphics card because it features a backplate. It also complements the look and feel that we have with our TUF Gaming series motherboard. All the way around, this is a really good choice for a graphics card, especially when we're talking about high 1080p gaming performance, and with the inclusion of 6 gigabytes, it can even jump into a little bit of 2560 by 1440 gaming, and definitely also increase a little bit of the fidelity. So regardless if you're playing anything from Apex Legends to Battlefield 1 to Warzone to The Witcher 3, you can definitely expect good gaming performance out of this GTX 1660 Super. Now next up, let's go ahead and talk about our chassis. Now just like our previous build, we've gone ahead and selected the Coolermaster Q300L. Now keep in mind, again, if you want to be able to have a really kind of cool look and feel to the entirety of the system, it is offered in a TUF Gaming variant for a little bit more. This will allow you to really closely match the overall look and feel of the chassis, the graphics card, and the motherboard, as they're all TUF Gaming branded. But if you go with the standard version, you're going to get a great chassis. It's got a lot of room to be able to fit in all your components. You can fit in a total of 6 fans, which gives you a lot of flexibility to be able to define a good look and feel along with good airflow. It has magnetic dust filters for the front and for the top that you can easily remove to be able to clean the chassis, and you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of where you can mount different types of cooling solutions. Although in our build, we're going to be utilizing the inbox cooler that comes with the CPU. All the way around, I also like the flexibility in terms of how you can adjust the actual front mounting I/O in different locations, so that if you want to maybe have the chassis placed in a horizontal setup as opposed to a vertical setup, you can do that. Now last but not least, we've got the power supply. Here we've gone ahead and selected a power supply from a partner with Seasonic and the S12-3. This is a 500 watt power supply, which is a great level in terms of the performance, in terms of the wattage that we're going to have for our system. 500 watts gives us more than enough headroom not only for the graphics card, but for the CPU. But even if we were to overclock both of those components and maybe add some additional fans and a higher performing cool solution and even more memory and maybe some additional storage, it also is going to give you a little bit more headroom so that if you later want to upgrade, let's say the CPU or the graphics card, you've got enough wattage to be able to do that. I also really like the fact that the actual cables are entirely flat, which allows them to be a little bit more easy managed and cable routed a little bit more effectively. And they're also entirely black, so they really complement the overall look and feel of our system, so that you don't have these cables kind of looking out of place. So all the way around, that wraps up our $830 build and is going to be a really solid foundation for your gaming system. And it's really going to comfortably be able to do anything that you ask of it. Now, some of you might be wondering about some optional upgrades. Some things to might consider would be maybe upgrading the CPU cooler. It's definitely not required. The inbox cooler is going to be able to provide good temperature performance, especially when you talk about stock levels. If you want to be able to have a little bit higher performance, we'll have an optional recommendation in the links down below. And predominantly, that's just going to get you a little bit lower temperatures and also a little bit of a bump up in the overall cool look and feel that you're going to have with your system, because it'll include some RGB lighting. The same thing also goes with, let's say, optional fans. If you want to add a little bit more airflow into the system, it's definitely not required, but if you want to have a little bit more airflow, you can definitely add some fans. We'll put options for non-RGB fans as well as RGB fans. And the great thing that you have with this motherboard, because it has 3 headers in total on this motherboard, is going to give you a little bit more flexibility to add, let's say, more fans as well as things like LED strips.